Hello, 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 and welcome to your new class today, where we're actually going to be diving into healing your triggers. So, if you are in my membership as part of the intensive course, you've created that blueprint I've been talking about, and you've already identified your triggers. If you're not in my course and this is part of your free training, you've likely already identified some of your triggers as well in this observation that I've been asking of you to do this week. If you would like, pause this video and make a short list of things that you can just readily recognize that trigger you on a day-to-day basis or often or whatever, because want to work with those triggers for these processes. So let's see. The next step is to use your triggers as a tool to deeper self-awareness and understanding, because your triggers are always about you. They are never about the other person. As much as we can say, like, this person made me feel this way, this person did this and it made me feel that way, that is another false narrative. Our triggers are always leading us to a deeper understanding of self, and always leading us to something that needs to be healed within ourselves. Now, that doesn't mean that our feelings around that trigger aren't valid. Don't get me wrong. But there's always a reason why we had such a strong reaction to something, okay? And I want to clarify that when I talk about triggering in the container of this training or this class, I'm talking about triggering. I'm not talking about the kind of triggering that happens when someone has post-traumatic stress disorder or complex post-traumatic stress disorder. This is a different type of triggering, and it's really truthfully what triggering really is. And those types of triggers cannot be healed through shadow work processes alone, okay? I'm talking about the triggering that creates an emotional expression, basically, that's invoked from outside influences. So I'm talking about triggering that creates strong emotional reactions because of outside stimuli, and nothing to do with true triggering, which is the result of post-traumatic stress disorder, etc. So hopefully you guys have been consistent with your self-regulation, which is already helping to support you. And again, if you're watching this on the free training, we have a whole freaking unit on somatic healing and self-regulation, and a really great workshop as well. Um, that my good friend and colleague Victoria Nielsen is coming in and teaching. It's a Kriya to subconsciously rewire the mind. So I am really looking forward to that. And that is just another perk you get within the membership, I should say. So hopefully you've been consistent with your self-regulation. Self-regulation alone really helps us to navigate triggering situations and have a healthy perspective on them. And am I overreacting? Is this response a valid match to what is happening? Does this response match what's actually happening? Or is this like an over-the-top response because there's something within myself? So being able to regulate the nervous system when triggered really helps us to gain that clarity. So you will never, ever be able to control the actions or behaviors of another person. It's just impossible. So if you allow yourself to be triggered constantly by other people or situations that are out of your control, you've literally just served your power up on a silver platter. You've given your power away. That is one of the most disempowering positions we can be in, because it kind of says in order for me to feel good, in order for me to feel peace, in order for me to feel aligned and happy and joyful, and all of those positive things we want to be feeling most of the time, everybody in my world and every situation out of my control has to line up with my expectations. And that is a lot of pressure to put on everyone in your world who knows you. It's an unrealistic expectation. And yet, so many of us are walking around subconsciously holding this expectation of, like, I need everyone to get in line with what I think, what I view, my perspective. And if they don't, now I'm in distress. I need everybody to be living the way I think they should live, thinking the way I think they should think, behaving the way I think they should behave, according to the expectations that I've set of them, or else I'm not happy. And to try to control that many people in that many situations is never going to work. And therefore, how we feel is always up to all of these things outside of ourselves and outside of our control. So the empowerment piece is when we really just get real that we can't control other people, but we can definitely control how we choose to respond. We can definitely choose to stop being reactive every single time we're triggered and instead pause and get curious. Why am I feeling so strongly about this? Is this valid? Do I need stronger boundaries? Because sometimes our triggers are really indicating that we just simply need stronger boundaries with certain people. But sometimes they're also indicating that we have deeper healing work that needs to be done. All right. So it is up to us to accept this truth and to become intentional about how we choose to respond and to become empowered through that choice instead of allowing every single thing that doesn't live up to those expectations to throw us for a loop. That is a miserable way to live. And yet, especially in today's climate, so many people are living this way where they literally have no power over how they're feeling because they have given it away to every single thing outside of themselves they cannot control. And this is why we see so many upset, depressed, anxious, and most of all, angry and judgmental people in the collective right now. That behavior is being exhibited by so many people because of this desire to try to control what we cannot control. So I think that is so important for you guys to understand and grasp in when it comes to being triggered. It's always about you. It's always your responsibility. It's never someone else's responsibility. If there's somebody in your life whose behavior is consistently triggering you, then it's likely time for you to create boundaries and move that person out of your life, not for that person to change who they are for your benefit. Because we're all on our own journey and everybody has free will. This is something that we were given. This is our God-given right, is to have free will over our behavior, our thoughts, our choices. So when we try to control other people to make ourselves more comfortable, we're essentially trying to strip away their free will. It doesn't work. We all have it, okay? So you become empowered when you take ownership and responsibility of how you feel, and you become more focused on healing your triggers as opposed to more focused on controlling the thoughts and behaviors of other people. So I want you to take some time to process kind of what I've said, to let it sink in, and if it triggered you a little bit, that's great. That's even better. I understand that some of the material I share is triggering, and guess what? It's triggering by design. It's actually my human design to trigger people. I'm the intentional provoker. Gate is lit up to trigger people into deeper thought, into deeper healing. It's part of what I came here to do, and it's a big part of how I work. So if you were triggered a little bit by some of these things I shared, that's great. After this video, journal about it a little bit, get curious a little bit, start working that muscle of curiosity instead of anger, instead of reactiveness. Start practicing the pause that I've talked about, practicing that pause of putting space between the trigger and your next actions, all right? And contemplate it a little bit. So again, if you're watching this on the free training, this is the time for you to pause and identify some of your most common triggers. Who triggers you, what triggers you, why it triggers you, all those things. And if you are watching this within the membership already, congratulations. You've already done this when you created your shadow work blueprint. So revisit that worksheet from the previous unit and start looking at these triggers, because in the next class, you're going to begin working through them one by one through my 4-step process. I cannot wait to guide you through it, and I will see you there.